What's goody? Hey man, so today we are back with another one of our top 5 position rankings heading into the 2025 season, man. And today we are back with our center rankings. This is one of those positions where it wasn't really one of my hardest positions to get to rank. I think I really had like my top 3 kind of set. And really going into this, it was like I think I moved one player down and moved 2 players up, but then everything else, it was kind of like I knew where I was already going to go with this because just like it's like these centers. It's kind of like there's some notable gaps between some of these guys. So let's just go ahead. Let's get right into it, man. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. And yeah, man, let's get right into it. So first of all, let's get into some notes. The first thing I want to say is there are guys like Chet and Bam here who I consider to be fours. I felt that they were fours because I felt that is what they primarily played last season, especially at the end of the season. But you could very well that Bam especially is still a 5-man for now, especially because there was only a couple months, a couple weeks of it was probably a couple months of Khalil Well really being the starting 5-man for them with Bam at the 4. So you could argue that Bam is a 5 because things have looked sporadic with what they're doing over there with Khalil Ware. So you could say Bam's a 5, but for me, he didn't make my list. He was in my honorable mentions for the power forwards. Now, I'm going to give you a spoiler right now. Joel Embiid did not make my list. He only played 19 games last season. And while he has been playing in the preseason, which is a phenomenal sign, God knows what he'll do this year. I feel like the 76ers have been like purposefully vague with what they've said about Joel Embiid. They don't want to be too clear about what they're saying with Joel Embiid because I don't think they want to give fans an answer, which I think is never really a good thing because I feel like if it was good news, you would want to tell the fans that. So maybe not. Maybe it is good news, but they just don't want to get their hopes up just in case. I don't know what it is, but all I'll say is he's not on my list. But if he was healthy and he had played even a partially healthy season last year, he'd probably have been my third or fourth guy. Yeah, and if he was fully healthy and he was back to that MVP level, obviously he would be number 2 on my list probably. Now let's get into my honorable mentions. First, I only have 2 honorable mentions. First, we have Rudy Gobert. You know who Rudy Gobert is. He's an all-defensive first-team guy every single year, basically. And if he's not going to make it, then it's going to be because he's hurt or because or he made the second team and there was a really good argument for him to make it. We know what Rudy Gobert is. You know what he's going to give you every single year. You know what he's going to give you every single day. The problem with Rudy Gobert is he's one of those players where his floor is consistent and high, but his ceiling is consistently low, especially on that offensive side of the ball. Because he has issues in the playoffs. He has lack of scoring, and it's just like he can't even catch the ball offensively. Like I think he has a literal inability to do anything positive on the offensive side of the ball, aside from set an occasional good screen and occasionally get an offensive rebound. That's really it. And with the center position as good as it is, and continuously getting better with young guys still at this position that are going to continue to get better, at least we think. The center position is getting better. Rudy Gobert isn't. And I think we're at the point now where his defense at his age currently is not enough to have him in the top 5 anymore, and that's at least my opinion. So Rudy Gobert is my 7th guy, my first honorable mention. Second and final honorable mention, my 6th guy, first guy off the list, is Domantas Sabonis. Now, one thing I'll say about this that I haven't said about any other one in any one of my other position rankings is if you're mad at this one, I actually don't just want you to let me know in the comments. I want you to send me send me your argument. Like I don't care if it's on Twitter, I don't care if it's in the comments. Just state a small bullet point version of your argument for me to read it because you could convince me. Genuinely, I could be convinced to move this man up as much as 2 spots because when I was originally making this list, I had him in at 4. Like, I thought of my top 3 guys pretty much when I was going down the standings, and then it was like, damn, is he 4th? Is he 5th? I ended up moving him down to 6th, but again, I could be convinced to move him up as much as 4th. I'm not the biggest Sabonis fan, so the fact that I could be convinced to move him up much, I kind of think says a lot, but I also think the fact that I'm not the biggest Sabonis fan is part of the reason that I was so willing to move him down 2 spots for the 2 guys that I moved above him. And even though I'm not the biggest Sabonis fan, we're not about to sit here and just disrespect the man and pretend like he's a bum and pretend like he's just here just because. He's one of the best pick-and-roll big men in the league. He shot 40% from 3 last year on, I think, about 2 attempts. So it wasn't like he was shooting a ton last year, but it wasn't like he was not even shooting 1 per game either. He's one of the best rebounders in the league, consistently one of the top guys in the league in rebounds per game, and he's just a very consistent player. He averaged 19, 14, and 6 last year on 59, 41, 71, on 59, 41, 75 splits. That's numbers that you're pretty much going to see consistently for the last few years of his career. But the thing that was different last year, that kind of speaks a little bit to his greatness, was that he was not an all-star, he was not all-NBA, and he did not finish in the top 10 in MVP votes for the first time in 2 years. I'm saying in the last 2 years, For 2 consecutive years, he has either been an all-star, an all-NBA player, or has finished top 10 in MVP votes, or has done a combination of those 3 things. And last year was the first time in 2 years he didn't do any of them. And I think a lot of that we know is because the Kings are just that bad. The counting stats for Sabonis are great. And even his on-off numbers, they were in the 90th percentile. He was in the 90th percentile in on-off differential, so it's very clear that he's a very good, very valuable basketball player that makes his team better. But I just never really know how to value him because I feel like his skill set is like just not quite as portable as it is with a lot of other bigs in the league. And what I mean by that is I don't feel as if the majority of the teams in the NBA could just trade for him and plug and play him within the middle of a season. I don't feel like you could do that with him, where I feel like you could do that with the majority of the guys in my top 5, if not all of them, to a better extent at the very least than Domantas Sabonis. Now, it's very rare that you're going to find just a plug-and-play guy that could fit on the majority of the teams in the league, because when you're talking about guys, especially guys that are top 5 in their position, you have to move things around in order to fit them in because they are going to require so much of your usage and everything like that. But what I'm basically saying is, of these guys, I think he is the least portable of all of them. I think he has the least portable game plan or game style of all of them. For example, you look at someone like Cat, or you look at someone like, even to a lesser extent, Rudy Gobert, you know exactly what you're getting from them, and you know that while you do have to build around them and you do have to change your team depending on them, you know how to do it. You know that you can put shooters and ball handlers around Gobert. You can let him handle the defense pretty much all by himself. If you give him one perimeter defender as just the cherry on top, that's beautiful. Because if you got 4 guys on there that can score and everything like that, blah, 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 that you trust offensively at the court at any time, and you got a 6-man that you trust offensively at any time, you can build a perfect team around Rudy Gobert. To an extent, at least. Now, I'm not saying a championship team, but I'm saying to an extent. Around Karl-Anthony Towns, you put 2-way guys around him, you put a defensive 5-man around him, you let him run the 4. You saw what that can get you, and it's a Western Conference Finals appearance with an Anthony Edwards. Now, granted, he wasn't the number 1 guy, but you get what I'm saying. You understand the mold of guys that you need around these players in order to maximize what you're getting off of them. And I think if I were to go around and I would ask all 30 GMs, or just take a sample size of 100 players, of 100 fans from every fan base in the league, I think I would get vastly different answers about the type of players you put around Domantas Sabonis. Whereas if you were to ask about Gobert or Cat, you would get a lot of the same molds of players. You understand what I'm saying? Sabonis needs the ball for a lot for a center. His usage is almost always near the 90th percentile or above. Got to skip the ad for my daughter. But he's not a great enough scorer like a Jokic to demand that defensive attention from anywhere on the court. So his usage is high, but a lot of times you'll see guys just sagging off of him to the point where they're playing in a gap, and it's damn near like a 5-on-4 defensively, because while he can shoot 40% from 3, those 2 attempts per game, they're not trusting him to the point where they're really closing out aggressively every single time. And I also would like to argue that his play style hasn't led much to winning. And granted, he's been in Sacramento, so you could blame Sacramento for as much to 95% of that. And I don't think we know how much of that losing is really on him because he is in Sacramento. But I think in the year where the Kings were their best and they were the 3 seed going up against the Warriors in the first round, where they're going to 7 games against the Warriors. His numbers in that season dropped from the regular season. He averaged 19, 12, and 7. In the playoffs, those numbers dropped to 16, 11, and 4.7. His efficiency in the regular season was 61, 37, 74. In the playoffs, that efficiency dropped to 49, 20, 57. Those are massive drops, and mind you, this is the year where they were their best. They took the Warriors to 7, and this is him playing like a bum, so could you imagine how good he would have been? If some of the guys above him had just played like that in the playoffs, they wouldn't even be sniffing my list. Or at least they damn sure wouldn't be sniffing the top 5. I would have never had them in considerations for top 4. So that was a big part of the reason that I was willing to drop him 2 spots, was because when you look at that playoff numbers and it's such a limited sample size and the drop is that significant, you have to take it into consideration a bit, especially when you think about his team consistently losing. My problems with building around Sabonis and his playoff woes, really, like I said, that's what prevents me from putting him on this list. However, I am willing to accept an argument that is that his sustained play, his sustained all-NBA, all-star level play is enough to put him over the 2 guys that I have directly ahead of him on this list. You could argue it, I just wouldn't. But if you have that argument, again, let me hear it, because I'm open to hear if you have some other perspective that I haven't heard. Now, let's get into my top 5. Starting with number 5, this one is an interesting one because I want to know what y'all think about this. Ivica Zubac. I'm not sure if I said your name right. I'm sorry if I didn't, but Zoo, baby, big Zoo. I feel like I probably shocked some of y'all because Zoo literally only had 1 year of being a top 5 caliber center. But yet he's already up here on my list. But I think what he did last season And what he did in that playoff series against Denver was extremely impressive. But not only did I think it was so impressive enough to where I had to put him on my list, I think he played in a fashion that I can see as sustainable, which makes me think that he's going to be able to do this again and again, which just makes me kind of want to pencil him in as top 5 already, even if that's a little premature. So I could see how you're saying that's a little premature, a little biased or whatever. Last year, though, he averaged 17, 12.5, and 2.5 on 63% from the field and 66% from the free throw line. He doesn't shoot enough threes to even have a percentage under his name on Basketball Reference. So, he's just not going to shoot threes. But if I were to give you a 21% 3-point shooting percentage about him, it's not going to change the way you think about him because you knew he wasn't shooting threes anyway. Now, the thing with Zoo is, of the 5 guys on this list, he's easily giving you the least offensively, and he easily has the smallest load to carry, the smallest role on that side of the ball. However, we do have to kind of weigh that defensive impact against that, and also how he played in the playoffs last year, because in the playoffs last year against Jokic, he averaged 17, 10, and 2 with 2 stocks while holding Jokic to only 24 points per game. And you're thinking, 24 points per game, while it's low for Jokic, isn't that bad. That's the lowest number in a playoff series that Jokic has averaged when it comes to points per game since he averaged 21.8 in the Western Conference Finals against the Lakers in the bubble. Mind you, I believe Jamal Murray either got hurt in that series or was hurt in that entire series, and MPJ was out that series. And he was going against Anthony Davis in his prime. Zubac last year finished as number 6 in DPOI voting and finished as all-defensive second team, and he also received All-NBA votes despite not making it to All-NBA third team officially. His on-off differential last year was in the 98th percentile, which was only behind Nikola Jokic and Dorian Finney-Smith, who were the 2 guys that were listed as bigs per Cleaning the Glass. Somehow DFS was listed as a big, and he's ahead of him in on-off differential percentile, whatever. In my opinion, you can't put Zoo any higher on this list, and like I said, you could very well argue that Sabonis should be over him, but I just value being the best defender on your team, on a good team, being the best player, being the best guy at defending the best player in the world consistently, while just also being an all-NBA caliber big and defensive player of the year level defender, defensive player of the year level rebounder, great screener, all these things. I value these things from my big man, which is why he's 5th on my list over Sabonis. Now, number 4, another guy that I said you could argue Sabonis could maybe be over for now. Alperen Sengun. I'm not the biggest fan of Sengun, I'll tell you right now, but I think at some point we have to value the fact that this man at his young age of 23 or something was just the best player on a 52-win 2-seed out west, especially when he got even better in the playoffs. In the regular season, he averaged 19, 10, and 5 on 49, 23, 69 splits, made his first ever All-Star appearance, but then you get to the playoffs, man, and this is where Sengun really shot up my list for me personally, where his numbers went up to 21, 12, and 5, while he was, mind you, he was the focal point of Golden State's defense, and he was being guarded by a top 3 DPOI finisher in Draymond Green. Now, I think this year will tell us a lot about Sengun, and I think this year will tell us if he's really going to be a solidified top 5, top 4 guy, or if he's going to be a guy that's kind of on the borderline that we're thinking, is he 5 or is he 7 every single year? And I do think that if the Rockets do get better this year, a lot of that will probably go to Kevin Durant. But I do think for them to get to that point where they're a true contender without Fred VanVleet being on the team this year with his injury, I think that will require Sengun getting better. And I think the real NBA ball knower, ball watcher will recognize his improvement even if his counting stats don't get better. 3rd for me, Karl-Anthony Towns. We know who Cat is. He's one of the best offensive centers in the league. He led the NBA in rebounds per game last year. He averaged 24, almost 13 and 3 on 52, 42, 83 splits, and he shot that amazing 42% from 3. Now, granted, he didn't shoot as many threes last year as in years past. He only shot 4.7 attempts per game from 3, which was his lowest since 2019. But I think this year with him likely playing the 4 a lot more, and with Mike Brown, who's an offensive-minded guy, being his coach, we will see Cat get a lot more three-point looks. So don't be surprised if Cat's averages this year go up to 26, 27. Don't be surprised if Cat's going out there and you're looking at Cat at the end of the year and you're like, damn, he averaged 26.5 and 12.5 boards? Damn, they're the 1 seed out east? Damn, like, don't be surprised if you look up and you see that. And this is coming from a guy that's not even the biggest Cat fan, as you're about to hear. Because in the playoffs, again, I just kind of felt like there were times that Cat felt like a non-factor. But This year, more than in years past, I felt like there were times where he actually shined more in the playoffs, because I felt like there were times, especially like in that one game against the Pacers in Indiana, where he was New York's only offense for like damn near an entire fourth quarter. So his playoff numbers are a little just confusing for me, and his numbers went down. He went from averaging like 24, 13, and 3 to 21, 11 and a half, and 1 on 49, 35, 84 splits. So his numbers dropped pretty much everywhere. But that's not the biggest problem with Cat, which is, I think, the most concerning thing, that the playoff drop isn't his biggest problem, because it's the defense, man. That defense was highlighted so much more in the playoffs than his offensive drop, because with him playing the 5-man and then having Jalen Brunson also on the court with him for a majority of the time, you just have two of the biggest defensive liabilities at their position on the court at the same time, and you're watching them both get cooked, where whoever Jalen Brunson's guarding is getting right past him, and they're going to Cat and they're looking at him on the layup like, barbecue chicken, I'm going up every time, because he's either going to foul me or I'm getting the bucket. And if I'm not getting the bucket, don't worry, I'm going to get it next time, because I'm getting it more often than not. For Cat, though, his on-off numbers offensively are phenomenal, but then you go to the defensive side of the ball, and like I'm saying, it's all negatives there, man. And then you go to the playoffs, and his offensive numbers went down in pretty much every area except for turnover percentage. And in turnover percentage, he went from 52nd percentile in the regular season to 56th in the playoffs, so it barely went up. And then literally everything else that cleaning the glass measures offensively, I'll tell you right now what went down. His usage percentile in the playoffs, percentage in the playoffs went down. His assist percentage in the playoffs went down. His points per shot attempt in the playoffs went down. His assist to usage ratio went down. Literally everything went down other than his turnover percentage. Cat's a very good player, man. Please don't get me wrong. He's, like I say, he's a top 3 center in the league. You don't get there without being a very good player. But there are some problems with his game, and I think it would be foolish for us to sit there and pretend like there aren't. Number 2 and number 1 are pretty obvious to me. Number 2 is Wembanyama. Obvious. If you go look at the counting stats alone, you could probably try to argue that Cat is over Wemby. Shout out D Mills, Numbers on the Board podcast tried to argue this, but man, you go look at the stocks. You go remember that Cat's a number 2 while Wemby's a number 1. You go remember that Wemby's a top 10 player in the league as a year 2 guy and had the DPOY locked up before he got hurt, and that was in December. And you're going to look at yourself, you're going to say, oh yeah, I'm being foolish for even thinking that Cat could be over Wemby right now. Wemby's the number 2 guy, man. He probably wins DPOY this year unless an injury happens, and I think the Spurs will probably be in my top 5 for most watched teams this year, and 95% of that is because of, 90% of that because I'm a big fan of Dylan Harper, but 90% of that is because of Victor Wembanyama, and the number 1 is Nikola Jokic. I don't have to say much there. Let me know what y'all thought about my list, man. Let me know if y'all agree with my list for the most part. If y'all think I'm tripping on some parts, let me know what y'all think. Give me y'all lists in the comments and Twitter, everything like that, man. I love it. I appreciate y'all. Thank you for watching as always. As y'all probably noticed yesterday, I've been talking about only my small forward and power forward ones were going to be on like the 2-a-day schedule because I messed up my release schedule. Well, I recorded that shooting guard ranking thinking I got it out on Saturday and everything like that, and then I go look Sunday night while I'm uploading my small forward and power forward list, and shooting guard list was never uploaded. So we're cramming in 2 videos a day for like 3 days before the NBA season starts. So I hope y'all are enjoying all the content y'all are getting. This is my own fault for being sloppy with my scheduling, being lazy with my scheduling, not holding myself accountable, not doing things just because I said I would do them. This is my own fault. And this is what happens when you start to backslide away from God, bro. You start to do small things like this where you just see yourself getting distracted by the temptations of the enemy, and you're like, man, the enemy's just the worst, because it's like the smallest little disobediences to God, and you immediately get so off track. And that's just the type of stuff that makes me think this YouTube thing is my purpose, really, because it's like, why would the devil be working so hard to tempt me to get me to do things that distract me away from this YouTube journey? Because no matter what school gets done, no matter what my work gets done, no matter what other stuff gets done, it's just YouTube is the first thing that I put away. And obviously it's because it doesn't make me any money yet, but it's also, I think it's because it could be my calling. Which is really, it's terrifying to say, but at the same time, God did not give us a spirit of fear. It's phenomenal. Thank you, Jesus, for whatever my calling is, even if it's not this. And if it is this, thank you, Jesus, for that too. Anyways, man, just give God a chance. I'm not telling you to follow him blindly just because I tell you to, or just because someone else tells you to, but read the Bible, pray. Ask God, say, God, if you are the real God, show me that. And if I am worshiping a false God, show me that. And say, if not God, whatever. You know what I'm saying? That's the least you could pray, because if I was worshiping the wrong God, I would want to know. And I have prayed that prayer before. If I'm worshiping the wrong God, show me. And anything can be your God. I'm not just saying worshiping the wrong religion. I'm saying anything can be your God. I've had a lot of different gods in my lifetime. Anyway, I love it. I appreciate y'all. Thanks for watching as always. Keep God first no matter what. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Don't forget to tell a friend, man. 12:02, got some time today. I'm about to go hop on the game, I think. A lot of stuff got done today that already needed to get done. Maybe I'll start working on my NBA predictions video. Maybe that's what I'll do. All right, peace out. I love y'all.